Alright, so we know everything we know about the heart. It's about how exercise affects everything, exercise is good, blah blah blah. We know all that stuff. Yet we still have no idea how the hell blood enters the heart and how it flows throughout the body. Simple blood flow throughout the heart. So that's what this video is going to go over, just how blood collects in the right atrium or chamber in the heart, picks up oxygen from the lungs, gets pumped out the left ventricle, goes throughout the body, nourishes it, etc., returns back to the heart. So, we'll just look at this beautiful heart that I just drew right now. And what happens is we care about these 4 chambers. These chambers are where blood collects and where blood leaves. So, clear that again. Okay, so first we'll do is we'll draw our dude. Gigantic neck. So he's probably obese. But we're drawing him and we have the heart right here. And what happens is blood gets dispersed throughout the body and it collects at the heart. We know that. So we have these veins. These collect all the deoxygenated blood back to the heart. You have veins from the legs, veins from the arms, carotid vein, whatever. All those veins going back into the right chamber of the heart. And then you have these arteries. Once the blood gets oxygen from the lungs, being pumped out throughout the whole body. So that's pretty much a cycle. And this is one heartbeat. It repeats thousands of times in your lifestyle and beats until you die. So, clear everything. Beautiful heart. Just drew again. And now there's one more thing to go over before we start delving into what happens. Got veins and arteries. Now what these are is these are like highways for the blood to travel throughout the body to get to its destination, its organs and whatnot. Veins always bring blood towards the heart. Always, no exception. Arteries always go away from the heart. So they're going pretty much either going to the organs or going to the lungs or going away. Easily remember as AA, alcohol anonymous, just easily remember it. So again, clear. Okay, so you have all the blood. And what happens is the blood is collecting from, since it's a closed loop, that means all the blood that leaves the left ventricle returns into the right atrium. No blood leaves the circulatory system. In a healthy individual, unless you have an aneurysm, as blood is leaking into the body, that's not good. But essentially you have all the blood from the upper part of the body and all the blood from the lower part of the body. And these are returning back to the heart via 2 really, really big veins called the superior vena cava and the inferior vena cava. And these are bringing blood back into the right atrium, and it really starts in the right atrium. So you have all this blood entering the right atrium. These are veins because they're going towards the heart. We just went over. So you have all this blood entering the right atrium. And on the right atrium, the blood has to get to the left ventricle. It can't just cross the wall. So its next destination is it goes into the right ventricle, directly below it. Atrium's on top, ventricle's on bottom. So it goes into the ventricle. Now, what is stopping blood from going back into the right atrium and going backwards? You don't want blood to go backwards. Turns out you have these valves. You can see them in here, these 2 little claw-looking dudes. You have these valves, and these are like doors. And on the right side of the heart, it's called the tricuspid valve. Tricuspid. In this tricuspid valve, when blood enters the right ventricle, it snaps shut, so blood can't go backwards. And that's very important because if blood goes backwards, that's called regurgitation. That can mess up the whole cycle. And this is what physicians and healthcare professionals listen to on a stethoscope. Regurgitation sounds like a whooshing sound in the heart, so they can easily tell when you have a valve problem. So anyways, you have the blood now in the right ventricle. So the next destination is blood. It's still deoxygenated. It has to go to the lungs and pick up oxygen. That's the point of breathing. So it goes out this blue guy. And this blue guy is going away from the heart, so thus it's called the pulmonary artery, because it's going away from the heart. And also there's another valve, so blood doesn't go backwards. And this valve is called the pulmonary valve. Pulmonary because it's going towards the lungs. And it's keeping blood from going backwards. So we'll clear this gigantic mess again. So pretty much blood is going out this guy, the pulmonary artery, going away from the heart. And it goes through the lungs, the lobes of the lungs. Now the heart is really in front of the lobes. These are obviously not correct sized lobes, but the heart is in front of it, not behind it. But anyways, you have the blood going into the heart, to the lobes. Now in the lobes of the lungs, what do the lungs do? The lungs bring oxygen to the body. So the blood picks up the oxygen and it gets rid of or drops off the CO2 it collected from the body. So it picks up the oxygen. And now its next destination is the other side of the heart. So now it picks up the oxygen, it enters the left atrium. Atrium's on top, ventricle's on bottom. So it enters the left atrium. And since it's going towards the heart, it's going towards the heart or into the left atrium via the pulmonary vein, because it's going towards the heart. So it enters the left atrium, just like on the other side of the heart. It falls into the left ventricle. This guy snaps shut. It's another valve. On this side of the heart, on the left side, it's called the mitral valve, or bicuspid. Either or can be called the same. They mean the same thing. Now, once it's in the left ventricle, when the valve snaps shut, what happens is it's in an enclosed environment, so it builds up this massive, massive pressure. And this pressure propels the blood, forces the blood out another guy called the aorta, which is this. So it forces the blood out the aorta. And the aorta is one of the strongest arteries in the body, or it's a very, very, very strong muscle in the body. And it pushes the blood out this aorta. And what the aorta does is it pushes out arteries going away from the heart to every single organ and tissue in the body that needs blood. So the left ventricle is extremely strong. This picture doesn't really show it, but the left ventricle is really, really strong and really large and muscular. Because its job is to push blood throughout the whole body. And that's a very big job. Whereas the right ventricle only has to push blood to its lungs, right behind it. It's not really an impressive job. So it pushes it out. And just like over here where there's the pulmonary valve, there's a aortic valve. Aortic valve, so blood doesn't fall backwards. Aortic valve. And then over here you got the aortic valve. It actually branches to the carotid, going from the head. It branches to the left side of the body. The left branches to the iliac artery, branches to the right artery, or the right subclavian artery, and it goes down to the pelvis. And then throughout these arteries, these miles and miles of arteries it goes through, literally miles, it reaches it branches into millions and millions of little capillaries. These capillaries is where gas exchange occurs, so oxygen leaves, carbon dioxide enters the blood, and then it collects back in veins going towards the heart, and the whole cycle completes. Now this whole cycle of blood entering the right atrium, the right ventricle being pumped out, going to the left atrium, the left ventricle being pumped out again, that happens in one heartbeat. So if you want to measure your heartbeat, it does this like 60 times a minute, 60 to 100 times a minute. So every time your heart beats, this whole cycle is happening. So it's pretty impressive how fast this all happens. But now we'll just draw a better picture to actually break it down so it's not a giant clusterfuck of writing. But here you have the right atrium. This guy is the right ventricle. Ventricle is on bottom. This guy is the left atrium. And this guy's the left ventricle. Left ventricle is much, much, much stronger than the right ventricle. Now the stroke volume, cardiac output. For stroke volume is how much blood, the volume that's leaving the left ventricle every single beat. Cardiac output is how much blood is leaving every single minute, or how much blood every minute is circulating the body. So it kind of all plays together. And then over here you have the tricuspid valve. Tricuspid. On the left side of the heart you have the mitral valve. These are called the atrioventricular arteries. It's a fancy word, but it just means atrioventricular. It separates the atriums from the ventricles. Oh, atrioventricular valve, sorry. Or AV valves, what do you want to call it. And then you have the valves over here. This valve is called the pulmonary valve. Now, actually, I'm not quite sure where the valve is. The valve's right here, over here. Again, it doesn't really matter as long as you know what it's called. Pulmonary valve. And then over here you have the aortic valve. Now, these valves are called the semilunar valves. They're shaped like little moons if you look at them under a microscope, whatever, but they're called semilunar valves. The AV valves are called the tricuspid and mitral valves. Semilunar valves are the pulmonary aortic valves. Now you have all the blood collecting in the right atrium, completes the cycle, whatever gets pumped out, it's all oxygenated, and then it returns. So that's one cycle of the body, of the heart. Every single beat it does this millions of times in your lifestyle until you die. And now it's pretty cool because when you understand the blood flow of the heart, stroke volume, the electrical stimulation of the heart, the EKGs, all that stuff plays on each other and makes sense. So that is the beautiful blood flow through the heart.